The list of some of the wealthiest and most influential people in the world with connections to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein has grown after the United States government released millions of new files related to its investigation into the controversial financier. This latest release has sparked new interest and debate as the documents show that Epstein had far-reaching ties across business, politics, and entertainment. The sheer size of the files is staggering. The newly released material, which came out on 30 January, included approximately 3 million pages, more than 180,000 photographs, over 2,000 videos, and references to a number of high-profile figures, including Richard Branson, Bill Gates, and Elon Musk. It is very important to note that being mentioned in these files does not imply any wrongdoing. Many of the people who appear in the documents have publicly stated that they have no involvement in any illegal activities connected to Epstein. The files simply reflect that these individuals had some form of interaction with Epstein at some point, whether personal, social, or business-related. The discussions, meetings, or events referenced in the documents do not automatically suggest illegal or unethical behavior. The release of these files came several weeks after the deadline set by the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which was signed into law in November by then-President Donald Trump. This law required the complete release of all documents related to Epstein's activities, and it was intended to provide greater public insight into the scope of his operations and the people connected to him. Many lawmakers, including both Democrats and Republicans, have criticized the administration for allegedly delaying the release of some records. They argue that not all files have been fully disclosed and that significant portions of material are still being withheld from public view. The files include a wide array of information. There are personal correspondences, financial records, photographs from social gatherings, videos, flight logs, and other documents showing Epstein's interactions with prominent individuals. Some records suggest regular meetings or visits between Epstein and certain high-profile figures, while other records only indicate brief contact, such as attending the same events or being in the same locations. While the content of these documents varies widely, the scale and complexity of the material demonstrate the vast network Epstein built over the years. Although there is no suggestion that any of the individuals named in the files committed a crime, the documents paint a picture of Epstein as a man deeply embedded in elite social and business circles. He was able to establish connections with influential figures from multiple sectors, including technology, politics, media, and entertainment. Some experts believe that Epstein's ability to gain trust and access to powerful people was central to his operations. The files are now being scrutinized by journalists, legal experts, and the public to better understand the extent of his network and the nature of these interactions. The public release of these files has generated significant media coverage and public discussion. News outlets have highlighted certain names repeatedly, prompting debates over privacy, accountability, and the role of powerful individuals in social and financial networks. Social media has been particularly active, with many users sharing excerpts and analyzing connections in real time. Despite this, the official position remains that inclusion in these files does not equate to guilt or illegal activity. In addition to high-profile business leaders, the files also include names from politics, academia, and the arts. Several people who had previously denied any involvement with Epstein have now found themselves referenced in the new documents, often leading to further public scrutiny and media reporting. While some names generate immediate attention due to their fame, others have gone largely unnoticed outside investigative circles. Each entry in the files varies in detail, from a simple mention to extensive records documenting interactions. The scale of the release, with millions of pages and thousands of images and videos, reflects the enormous complexity of the Epstein investigation. Legal teams, journalists, and independent researchers are now faced with the challenge of combing through the material to identify relevant patterns, connections, and potential leads. Many of these files have already been digitized, allowing for easier searching and analysis. However, the sheer volume means that reviewing all the information thoroughly will likely take months, if not years. The Epstein Files Transparency Act aimed to ensure that the public could gain access to this material, to shed light on Epstein's activities, and to understand the social and professional circles in which he moved. While critics argue that the release is incomplete, the availability of these millions of pages still represents a historic disclosure. It is rare for a private individual to have such an extensive record of interactions with globally recognized figures, and the files offer an unprecedented look into the intersections of wealth, power, and influence.
Many of the newly released documents also include travel logs, showing that Epstein frequently hosted and attended private events, often flying on his private jet to destinations around the world. Flight manifests list passengers who were sometimes prominent public figures. While these logs alone do not indicate any wrongdoing, they illustrate how Epstein moved within elite circles and the access he had to influential individuals. Some of these trips were social, some were business-related, and others remain unclear. The images and videos included in the files add another layer of detail. They capture moments from gatherings, parties, and other social events where Epstein mingled with wealthy and powerful figures. While some of the content appears mundane, such as photographs of people at social functions, other material has drawn attention for the interactions shown. Media organizations are reviewing the visual content carefully, often with the help of experts, to ensure context is accurately represented and no misleading assumptions are made. One of the ongoing debates surrounding the release of these files is how much responsibility falls on the individuals who appear in them. Legal experts emphasize that appearing in a document does not automatically imply any criminal or unethical behavior. Many people referenced in the records had professional or social interactions with Epstein without knowledge of his illegal activities. Still, public curiosity and media reporting mean that even a simple mention can have reputational consequences, making transparency and accuracy critically important. In the months following the release, journalists and independent researchers have begun compiling analyses seeking to map the web of Epstein's contacts and the influence he wielded. Some researchers are focused on the financial connections, looking for patterns in donations, investments, or business dealings. Others are analyzing social and political networks, tracing meetings, events, and affiliations. Together, these efforts aim to provide a clearer understanding of how Epstein operated and the extent of his reach. Several high-profile figures named in the latest release have made statements to clarify their interactions with Epstein. They stress that their meetings or communications were unrelated to any illegal activity and that they had no knowledge of Epstein's criminal conduct. These clarifications are important to prevent misinterpretation as the media and public closely examine the files for potential connections and patterns. The Epstein Files Transparency Act was designed to prevent delays and ensure the public receives as much information as possible. However, some lawmakers argue that not all files have been released and that the government may still be withholding key records. This has sparked debates over the need for complete transparency versus concerns about privacy, ongoing investigations, and national security. While millions of pages have now been made public, critics say additional disclosures are necessary to fully meet the law's intent. In the release has also prompted discussions about the broader implications of Epstein's network. Scholars, legal analysts, and journalists are considering questions about wealth, privilege, and accountability in society.
They examine how individuals with access to resources and influence may intersect with those who exploit their positions for illegal purposes. While the files focus specifically on Epstein, the discussions raised by the release touch on broader societal issues, including ethics, responsibility, and the power dynamics between the ultra-wealthy and those around them. Even as attention focuses on the big names like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and Richard Branson, there are many others included in the documents who are less well known, but still played a role in Epstein's social or financial circles. Their inclusion highlights the wide-ranging reach of Epstein's network, which extended far beyond what was previously publicized. This makes the files a valuable resource for understanding the complexity and scope of his connections. The files are being analyzed not just in the United States, but around the world. International journalists and researchers are examining the documents to trace connections between Epstein and global figures. Some material has shed light on international travel, cross-border financial dealings, and interactions with high-profile foreign dignitaries. The global reach of Epstein's network demonstrates that his influence and connections were not limited to any single country, making this one of the most comprehensive disclosures of its kind. Experts caution that while the documents are extensive, interpreting them requires care. With millions of pages, there is a risk of misreading context or drawing incorrect conclusions. The files include routine interactions alongside more unusual or noteworthy encounters. Separating the mundane from the significant is a task for journalists, legal experts, and investigators, and it will take considerable time to fully understand the implications of the records. As the files continue to be explored, the public remains engaged and curious. The discussions sparked by the release touch on questions of morality, legality, and the responsibilities of powerful individuals in society. The documents do not provide all the answers, but they offer a rare opportunity to examine the inner workings of a network that intersected with some of the most influential figures in business, politics, and entertainment. The files remind the public that even individuals operating in the highest circles are subject to scrutiny, investigation, and in some cases, accountability.
Beyond the high-profile names and flashy events, the files reveal the depth of Epstein's influence in more subtle ways. There are financial records showing investments, loans, and donations that link him to a variety of individuals and organizations. Some of these financial connections appear routine, while others raise questions about how he cultivated relationships and gained access to powerful circles. Experts suggest that understanding these patterns is essential to fully grasp the scope of Epstein's network and the opportunities he created for himself. The documents also include legal correspondence showing how Epstein navigated the justice system over the years. This material sheds light on strategies he used to manage public perception, influence legal outcomes, and maintain connections with influential people. While these records do not implicate others in wrongdoing, they provide insight into the methods he employed to protect himself and his interests. Legal analysts are combing through this correspondence to better understand how Epstein managed to operate for so long, despite numerous investigations. Another area of interest is the social dimension of the files. Epstein hosted and attended numerous events that drew people from a wide array of industries. Photographs and videos capture conversations, gatherings, and interactions that reveal how he positioned himself as a central figure in elite social networks. While many of these social interactions were entirely legitimate, the sheer volume of connections highlights how Epstein built relationships with some of the world's most influential people. Sociologists and media analysts are studying these interactions to understand the dynamics of power, privilege, and influence that Epstein leveraged. Flight logs included in the documents provide further context. Epstein frequently traveled on his private aircraft with passengers who were influential in business, entertainment, and politics. These logs offer a record of when and where Epstein traveled and who accompanied him on various trips. While travel records alone do not indicate any illegal activity, they provide a chronological account of his interactions and movements, which is useful for researchers and journalists mapping his network. Many of the individuals named in the files have emphasized that their interactions with Epstein were unrelated to any criminal conduct. They stress that the files reflect social or professional engagements rather than illegal activities. These statements are essential for clarity, as media attention often amplifies speculation. Public figures are mindful of the reputational risks associated with being mentioned in such a high-profile release, even if they have no involvement in Epstein's criminal acts. The release of the Epstein files has reignited public conversations about wealth, influence, and accountability. Scholars, journalists, and concerned citizens are discussing how individuals with power can sometimes intersect with those who exploit others. The files have raised awareness about the importance of transparency and scrutiny when it comes to high-profile figures. These discussions extend beyond Epstein himself, prompting questions about systemic issues and the responsibilities of those in positions of authority. Despite the enormous volume of material, the files are still being processed and analyzed. Researchers are employing digital tools and databases to sift through millions of pages, thousands of images, and hundreds of videos. This process is ongoing and will likely take a long time. Experts caution that drawing conclusions prematurely could lead to misunderstandings. Context is key, and each interaction, photograph, or document must be carefully examined before assumptions are made about intent or culpability. International observers are also taking note. Epstein's network extended far beyond the United States, and several foreign dignitaries, business leaders, and celebrities appear in the documents. These international connections highlight the global reach of his influence and underscore the significance of the release. Journalists and legal analysts worldwide are examining these records to better understand cross-border relationships and financial transactions linked to Epstein. The Epstein files, while vast and detailed, are only one part of the larger story. They do not solve all questions, nor do they provide definitive answers about the actions or knowledge of every individual mentioned. However, they represent a historic disclosure, offering unprecedented insight into the social, financial, and political circles that Epstein navigated. For the public, the release serves as both a record of his connections and a reminder of the complexity of power and influence in modern society. As more people examine the files, the discussion continues. Public interest remains high, and the stories emerging from the documents continue to shape perceptions of Epstein and those connected to him. While many names in the files may be familiar, the documents also highlight lesser-known individuals whose interactions with Epstein may have been significant in ways not immediately obvious. This combination of high-profile and obscure references makes the files a rich resource for understanding the full extent of Epstein's reach. The Epstein files continue to dominate headlines and public conversation. They serve as a testament to the importance of transparency, the scrutiny of power, and the ongoing investigation into one of the most notorious figures of recent decades. While the release does not imply wrongdoing by everyone mentioned, it provides an unparalleled window into the world Epstein inhabited and the connections he fostered. For viewers, researchers, and the general public, the files offer both insight and caution, illustrating how influence, privilege, and opportunity can intersect in ways that demand careful examination. As the process of reviewing these documents continues, it is clear that the Epstein files will remain a topic of discussion and analysis for a long time. Legal experts, journalists, and independent researchers will continue to explore the records, seeking to understand the scope of Epstein's network and the impact of his interactions with influential individuals. While the files do not tell the whole story, they represent a significant step toward transparency and accountability.